Hey everyone, welcome back. Bruce here with DIY Homestead Projects. In this video, I'm going to be installing a 4-foot LED light over my shop area. And in order to do that, I need to pull power from this outlet. So I'm going to be installing a switch off of this outlet, and the switch will control my overhead lights. Now there is some controversy whether or not that's acceptable, so check your local building codes. And if you don't feel comfortable doing this, then I recommend that you hire an electrician to take care of the job for you. In this video, I'm going to show you how I'm going to go about it in my situation. I'll show you all of the products that I purchased for this particular project. I got them off of Amazon, and I'll list my Amazon affiliate links in the description of this video for everything that I used in this project. The first thing I need to do is I need to cut the power to this outlet. I've got a light plugged into this outlet right now via this extension cord. So I'm going to go out to my circuit breaker box. I'm going to shut off the breaker that I believe it is, check and see if my light is off, and if the light is off, then I've got the correct breaker and I will have no power in this particular outlet, and then I know I can go ahead and get started with this job. Now when you find the correct breaker, mine happens to be for this golf cart outlet. It's a 20 amp breaker. Just look on the switch and see what it says. This is a 20 amp. So that's going to determine the size wire that I need for this circuit. And in this case, it'll be 12 gauge Romex. So here's the components that I purchased for a couple of light projects, but these are the ones I'll be using in this particular light install, where I'm installing the light and switch off of an outlet. First of all, I'm going to need a LED light. So I really like this particular light. I'll get into more detail about it here a little bit later in the video, but it's a Lithonia 4-foot LED strip light, 2,300 lumens and 4,000 Kelvin in color. I really like these lights. I've installed a couple more, and there's a couple of things that you need to know about it I'll cover further in the video. I need some 12-2 Romex, about 15 feet. All this was purchased off of Amazon, by the way. I've got a new paddle switch with a ground on it. These are the drywall anchors, self-tapping drywall anchors I'll be using to hang the light fixture on the ceiling. And then a Romex stress relief or Romex clamp so that I can use the light fixture itself as the junction box. I've got a outlet to switch faceplate, double gang box I really like. This one comes with screws, so this will just fasten just directly to the stud. These are left over from previous projects, but I'll just use the old-fashioned wire nuts for 2 different sizes depending on sizes of wires and how many I'm putting under each nut. All of this I will link in the description of the video if you want to look at more details on all these products. I do have the power keeled to this outlet with the breaker switch. A lot of different ways to test this. You can plug a light in like I had before, or you can use an outlet tester, something like this, just to check and make sure that you don't have any power to your outlet. So now I can start working on this box, and the first step, of course, is to remove the cover plate. And then I will remove the outlet and pull the wires out of the box. And then the next step is to actually just remove the outlet. So I've got a neutral, a hot, and a ground. And then I need to determine where the stud is. So let me just pry on this box a little bit with a screwdriver and see if I can see behind it. Definitely a stud over on the left side. And no stud on this side. So my new box extension is going to go over here to the right of the existing outlet. So I want to actually tuck these wires again back in the box out of the way. I'll have to straighten them out again so I can put my new box up here and draw an outline of where I need to cut. And I'm just going to hold it up and line up 2 edges with the current hole. And just to make sure, I'm going to put a level on it to make sure it's square or plumb. And then once I'm happy with what I've got there, I'll draw a line around the box. Now this particular box will fit flush with the surface of the drywall. So I just draw all the way around, and then I've got my cut line and I know exactly where I need to cut. And then I'll take my plunge saw and just start on one of the edges. I'm going to push it in right here, and I'm only going to go as deep as necessary to cut through the sheetrock, because I honestly don't know what's behind this. So I'll just be real careful as I cut this out. Now I'll pull these wires out, straighten them out, and then I'll just take a bigger screwdriver and start to pry that box free from the stud, being careful not to damage the drywall. Okay, now that I have the box free, I should be able to wiggle it out of this hole, and then I can pull my wires through and out of the box. And there's the old box. And then I'm going to take my plunge saw and just clean this up a little bit so I can test fit the new double gang box, make sure it fits the location. And that's going to work just fine. Now, as you can see, I've got my 12-2 Romex down through the hole where the box will go. And this was a pretty simple installation due to the fact that the attic space above this particular garage doesn't have any insulation. So I've got that wire running through that wall cavity, up across the ceiling, and coming out this hole here. Now, that hole is a 1 1/4 inch hole that I drilled with a hole saw. And I've also mounted my drywall anchors and drawn out a nice straight line where I'm going to mount the overhead LED light that'll be connected to the switch off of this outlet. Here's an attic view of the light and the wire that I ran. So over there on the wall, the top plate, I've got a yellow Romex 12-2 run across there. That's only about 4 feet, and then it goes down into this hole, and that'll feed into the light after it goes through the cable clamp. Not too bad, just a matter of crawling over there and staying off the sheetrock so you don't break through. In a way, I'm kind of lucky. This over the garage portion of this home is not insulated, so I didn't have to fight through the insulation, which makes it nice. And you can see the sheetrock anchors, one right next to the hole where the wire comes through, and then the other one back over here. So this step is about as straightforward as it comes. You just feed your wires through the box, and then push the box in to where you're just flush with the outside. Then you're ready to put these 2 screws into the stud. And then I'll peel back the insulation along with the paper, and then just take my knife and cut that off, just leaving about 1/2 inch or inch or so in the box there. Next, I need to prepare some pigtails for installing both the outlet that was in the box to begin with and the new switch. These are 2 10-inch pieces that I cut off of the end of the leftover Romex, and I'm going to need 1 neutral, so I can set one of these aside. I'll need 2 hots or 2 blacks, and then I'm going to have 2 grounds. So I'll just strip about 3/4 of an inch off of each end, but there's a strip gauge right here. You can just hold your wire up to it, and it shows you how much you need to strip. And I'll just use that as a guide when I strip that piece of wire, so I've got the perfect length for making the pigtails or making the hooks in the wires. And then I'll twist some hooks into one end of both hots and the neutral, as well as the 2 grounds. I like to do the grounds first because I'm going to tuck them into the very back end of the box. I'm going to have a total of 4 wires under this 1 wire nut. I just like to twist them all together. So I'll just get a good twist on them and then trim it. And if I kind of go at a little bit of an angle, it makes it kind of nice for putting the wire nut on. And I could put 4 number 12 gauge wires under these red wire nuts. And then I've got my 2 pigtails. Leave those to the front of the box so I can get to them. And then I'm going to take the rest of that wire, those grounds, and tuck them into the back of the box. Now the neutrals are only going to connect to the outlet, so I'm only going to have one pigtail on the neutrals. But I need to strip both of these. And don't go too much. You don't want any of this wire hanging out the back of the wire nut. You want it to be all insulation. All the bare wire will be tucked inside the wire nut. So we'll grab our pigtail, twist these three together, and put the yellow wire nut on these. The max I can do 12 gauge wire on these yellow wire nuts is 3. Keep my pigtail out so I can get to it, and then we'll tuck that to the back of the box. And then when we get to the hots or the blacks, same thing applies. I'll cut the hook off of that one, strip it back 3/4 of an inch. Or use your guide. This one needs stripped as well. Now for the two hots or the two blacks, the one with the paint on it is my line in because that was originally in the box. That's where the power is coming from the circuit breaker. So that one is going to get the 2 pigtails, and since there's 3 in this particular group, I can use one of my yellow wire nuts. And then the remainder will get tucked back in the box. So those 2 are the line in, and then the other one that is going to the new light fixture, we'll just get a hook on that. Now we're ready to install the switch and the outlet. So it's black on brass. If you look at the outlet, one side has brass screws and the other side has silver. So I'm going to hook the hot to the brass. Make sure you've got the hooks going clockwise around the screw. That'll bring power to the switch. We'll flip it over and we'll connect our neutral to the silver. These other screws will not be used, so I'm going to screw them all the way in and tighten them down. The last is to connect the ground here to the bottom to the ground screw on the outlet. I just kind of bunch those wires together and put a little S-bend in it so they'll fold back into the box when I push that up there. So this is the pigtail, goes on the bottom clockwise around the screw. Line out, which goes on the top. Notice on a switch, both screws are brass. That should give you a hint that they're both positives or both hot wires. And then of course the ground is going to go on the ground screw or the green screw on this switch. And now we've got both the outlet and the switch wired in this box. And I just need to adjust the wires and put some bends in them so I can feed all this 12 gauge wire back into the box. And I have decided I'm going to go around this outlet a couple of times with some electrical tape just over the terminals in case a wire comes loose in the box. This is not a requirement, it's just a preference. And I've never done this in the past, so this time I decided I'm going to go ahead and try it. And they're ready to be mounted into the box with the screws. Okay, I want to show you something that's really important that you need to know if you decide to choose these Lithonia single strip 4-foot LED strip lights. You can get them for about $26 or so on Amazon, and I'll link them in the description. One of the cheaper lights. They have really good light output. I think it's a high quality light, but looking at some of the reviews, some people have had a bad experience, but let me show you why and what the problem is. so that you don't run into that, and if you decide to go with these, you won't have their problem. So it's only about 1.5 inches wide, maybe 1.5 inches deep. Nice light. And then this top piece pops off of here. Let me see if I can pop that off for you. Just pops off of there. And then there's a clip that connects the lighting from the strip that has the LED down to the LED controller. Now this light has 3 knockouts, one in the center and one on each end. And those knockouts are so you can bring your Romex into it or your wiring into it and use this fixture, this cavity here and over here, for your junction box, which is what I'm going to do with my installation. So the problem is when you snap the bulb on there, the center knockout lines up with these 2 wires that connect to the strip light. And I've pressed these down to kind of keep them, but they have a big curve on this wire, and this sticks down into the box about 1 inch. These wires do. Right over the knockout. Right over the knockout section. So if you put a Romex wire clamp on here, which is what I did, your Romex is going to stick down into this part of the box about 1/2 inch or so. And if you're not real careful about spreading those wires out and get them as flat up against the top of this fixture as possible, when you snap these 2 together, possibly you could break these 2 wires off here. Break the wires off of the LED strip. So there's a couple ways to get around that. One, just really be conscious about that when you bring your Romex through here. Flatten these wires out as much as possible, but be real careful when you flatten them out. Don't break that connection. You can slide this diffuser off of here and hold your hand on this side while you bend these wires down so you don't break it loose. Or even better than that, when you bring your when you put these on the ceiling and you measure it out and decide where you want to put them, knock out one of these end knockouts. It's only 1 inch or so from the end of the fixture. Bring your Romex in through that knockout and then wire it up. Actually, what I'm going to do on this particular one, this is my 3rd one I'm going to be putting up. I'm going to knock it out on this side, and this is completely open over here. So you've got the neutral and the positive in this section, and then you can bring your ground wire, which is this green one, and bring it across here over into this cavity. So all your connections, you have all this room for your connections, and when you snap this LED fixture on there, you're not going to have a conflict with the wires hitting each other and breaking these 2 wires off. Good to know info, but they're a really good quality LED light, and I'm really happy with their output for their size. They only weigh about 2 pounds, easy to install, and I like the color on them. I've got the 4000 Kelvin color, really nice for a shop. So I mocked this up on the bench so I can show you how I'm going to wire these LED light fixtures with this 12 gauge Romex. And if you do it this way, you won't have any problems wiring these lights up, and they should last a long time. I bought a 15 pack of these off of Amazon, and I found these to be one of the nicest ones for my particular application. But you're just going to take that Romex connector, and you want the teeth inside the fixture, and just pop that into the 1/2 inch knockout. There's one on each end and one in the center. I am not going to use the center one because of the reasons I explained earlier with conflict with those wires. So I'm going to use the one here on the end. Once you push this through that connector, it'll tighten that connector up a little bit. But you're going to pull that through that connector, and then I'm going to do my best to put a 90-degree bend in it so that it fits into your light fixture just like that. All you need is a 1 1/4 inch or maybe even a 1 inch hole in the sheetrock in order to install this light. You don't need to put a J-box or a junction box in the ceiling. I'm using this portion of the light for the junction box. And the lights come with 3 wire nuts. And then I'm just going to take these and fold them something like this so they line up with the ends of my Romex. And then you've got the ground. And that one will get the same kind of a fold in it. And then it's just as simple as wiring it up just like you normally would. Black to black, white to white, ground to the bare copper ground coming in from the Romex. And this is what I'm doing on the ceiling, but it's just a little bit difficult to demonstrate over my head like that with the camera. But you're just going to put your wire nuts on these 3 wires and then just bend them so they fit down inside the light fixture nice and smooth. And you've got no conflict with anything on this particular side of this fixture. All the other connectors and everything is on the other side, and this is the yellow connector that connects to the actual LED light that snaps to the bottom. So when you have this up there on the ceiling, you wire it up, plug in this yellow connector and snap the actual light onto the case that's mounted to the ceiling, and you're good to go. Then this end, this is mounted flush to the ceiling, and it won't be quite flush because you've got about an 1/8 inch piece here, but you've got a couple of screws on this fixture that are going to keep it about 1/8 of an inch from the surface of the ceiling. If you drill a big enough hole, this will sink up into the ceiling, and then you could drill out some little tiny 1/4 inch deep holes to accommodate these screws. There's 3 of them. A screw here for the grounds, one that comes through this direction here, and here for that LED control box that's inside the fixture. And I wish they would have countersunk those so that this is smooth and flat, because you got about a 1/4 inch for those items. You could press those into the ceiling, pull it down, and drill those holes about a 1/4 inch deep so they'll fit up into the sheetrock, and then you'd have a flush, completely flush mounted fixture. But I'm going to just mount it as is, and we'll see what that looks like. Just turned on the breaker. I tested both outlets. They're both in good shape. And let's check out this light and see how it works. Real nice. Super handy. Have that switch right here on the workbench if I need more light. Super nice lights. I really like them. Don't forget, I'll link them in the description. And if this video helped you out, don't forget to give me a thumbs up. And to see another video that's similar to this with some home DIY electrical, click the video on the screen now. We'll see you over there.